working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about as we're going to, according to the Orange Menace, make America great and glorious again, or for short, MAGAGA. Yes, MAGAGA. MAGAGA. And as Lawrence Tribe said on Twitter, if it makes you gag, get used to it, because it's going to. MAGAGA. Yes, MAGAGA. Now, interestingly enough, the folks on the right not overly warm with the Donald. The big announcement that running for president, and guess what else was he going to do? But not a warm reception. In fact, the folks over at Red State, the glaring headline, Trump shocks the world by nearly putting us to sleep. What? What? I thought, what? In fact, most the broadcast networks didn't cover his announcement, ignored it. ABC, NBC, CBS all stuck with previously scheduled programming. The F channel, now they stuck with it. CNN did most of the, I guess like 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and then they cut to a panel and then their regularly scheduled programming. Yeah, gonna be interesting to see how the media focuses on this, because understand, he needs the ratings. He needs the ratings. He doesn't need the endorsements. He doesn't need people. He doesn't need groups. He needs the ratings. He needs people to keep paying attention to him. That's what he needs. He needs people to start sending more money. He needs to be able to keep fleecing people, the flock. Now, I do find it interesting that one of the billionaires and the big Republican mega donor, Ronald Lauder, said that he's not going to help Trump's 2024 campaign. That's kind of a BFD, I think. But that's yeah. Now, here's the thing. And I want to hear your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. You surprised that Trump is running, or are you surprised that he's running this early? I'm not surprised that he's running. Look, he's a narcissist. He craves revenge more than anything. He wants to seek vengeance. So it's not surprising to me that he's running for that reason. Look, run the country, push an agenda, make people's lives better. Really? Does anybody believe that? Seriously, does anybody believe that Donald Trump is running for office because he gives a tinker's damn about the country or about working people? Seriously, if anybody is out there, please, I gotta hear the rationale. 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425, because the reality is he needs the attention, needs the love, needs the eyes. And look, he was humiliated. He wants revenge. To me, that's what this is about. Now, the other part of it also, this early, in my view, is to keep, he's got to know incarceration is possibly down the road. He's got to know, the idea that he may be indicted at some point about, that perfect phone call with Brad Raffensperger about, hey, go find me 12,000 votes in the seat cushion. Go rig the election for me. I'm going to ask you point blank to steal the election while I'm claiming the other side is stealing the election. Is that lost on anyone, really? I mean, the irony. Now, interestingly enough, Republicans gained the House today. They are going to, and good on them. This is going to be an interesting 2 years with whoever's going to be speaker. It looks like it might be McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy may be speaker. We'll see. He cleared the first hurdle. And I wish it for him. It's one of those things, he wants it. I want it for him. I want him to have the kind of insanity that I think we all know is coming. The kind of craziness that we all know is on the horizon. The investigations into Hunter Biden's underwear. I mean, I can't even, my mind doesn't go as far as their craziness is going to take us at this moment. So that will be somewhat entertaining. And look, as we talked about yesterday on the program, the reality is Democrats have a lot of catching up to do messaging wise and getting the infrastructure money spent and getting those projects, built and promoting the idea that, hey, look what we did and look how we're changing the country and the jobs that we're creating and the difference that we're making for the future. So this could be a little respite from actually having to govern, because Republicans don't have a strategy to govern. All they're going to do is gridlock, delay, hold the country hostage because it's what they do. So that's going to be interesting. Now, interesting also, the Senate. Mitch McConnell fended off the challenge from Rick Scott. I thought it'd be a little closer. Thought it might be a little bit closer, 37-10. Kind of a thumping, so only 10 really crazy senators. I thought there were, honestly, I thought there were more. Thought there were more. It's that simple. But I go back to this. The next 2 years under Republican rule, at least in the House, because understand, and this is the sad reality of where we are. This election, while historic, while yes, the Democrats had done something that's not been done before, they kept the Senate and increased their lead in the Senate. They didn't lose, but a handful of seats in the House. Still doesn't give them a governing majority. You still can't push an agenda. You still can't get anything done. So as a country, we haven't made any decisions. We haven't made a choice yet as a nation. And that still has to happen. We are now in a holding pattern. And that holding pattern is going to see just how far Kevin McCarthy and the Freedom Caucus and the Marjorie Trainwreck Green Caucus is going to take us. I'm hoping this is one of those eye-opening moments that we go, wow, that we needed that. We needed that 2 years of insanity to bring us back to some semblance together, and then we can fix things. Maybe that's what I'm kind of hoping. Let's go to the phones. Got Alice on one. Alice, how are you today?
I'm fine. I've got a tip for you.
Hit me.
Buy stock in popcorn.
I've already got a box.
Well, you better stock up. It's going to get interesting from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, no. Now, the only thing I can see that things may go a different way is if there's a coalition of sane, and I know, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but if there are some sane Republicans left, that they go with the Democrats and they figure out how to find a speaker who isn't Kevin McCarthy, who's going to push an agenda and agree to an agenda that we can actually govern and get some things done, that that there's a possibility, very slim. I know it's hard for me to say this, but that could possibly, no, never mind. I don't know. I can't believe I'm saying that. Never mind. It was stupid of me to say. It's going to be a giant S show. Yeah, I agree.
Well, I'm also saying, well, they passed those bills in the Senate today, and 12 of the Republicans voted for the, same-sex marriage bill and all that. And
yep.
I'm thinking, yep, we're going to have a civil war right there in the Republican Party.
Yeah,
I mean, think about it.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you looked at the names of the people who voted for it. I mean, Mitt Romney was on there, and it's because look, the Church of Latter-day Saints yesterday came out and said that they were in favor of it. Now they said no, it's against our religion and all that, but they're going to still come out in favor of it, which I thought was interesting, which gave him the ability to say yeah. So I mean, I'm hoping that we can get through some of this stuff.
Well, I think it's a good.
Yeah, I think you just hung up on Alice. Or Alice just hung up. But look, the Respect for Marriage Act did pass the Senate, so that's a good thing. Let's go to line 3. We got CJ on line 3. CJ, how are we doing today?
I am good, Rick. Thanks for taking my call.
Hit me, brother. What's on your mind?
Well, you and I have had many discussions. I'm a conservative, and it doesn't matter, whoever the nominee is, we're going to have a lot of great candidates, and someone that isn't going to put us in a nuclear war like this president, who's been a failure, the border, inflation.
Okay.
Fuel.
Do you have anything other than a Do you have anything other than a Republican talking point that has been? Do you have anything other than a Republican talking point? Do you got anything other than a Fox News talking point, CJ? Anything? Do you have anything resembling your own thought?
Are you going to talk over?
Do you have anything resembling your own thought?
But you can't deal with the facts.
No, see, you're saying we're going to start a nuclear war, and you've provided any detail whatsoever other than
Afghanistan, 13 soldiers dead. He walked us into a war with Ukraine as he watched Russia build up.
Oh, CJ, I'm done with you. That's it. Done with you, CJ. I can't. This is one of those moments where I want to have conversations with people I disagree with, but when you're devoid of reality, I'm struggling. I just done. Sorry. It is just that kind of day for me. This idea that, again, every one of these situations, they're going to lay at the feet of Joe Biden. Everything's Joe Biden's fault. I ran into this over the weekend. Gas prices are all Joe Biden's fault. And you go, well, energy is a global commodity. You do realize what's going on in Ukraine. You do realize that we came out of a pandemic. You do realize corporate profits are, you do realize all this. No. It's always the simplistic. It's what the talking point is. It's the Keystone XL pipeline, which would have done nothing to lower gas prices, was never going to be used here in the U.S. The Keystone pipeline is operating just fine. Yet you ask the average conservative if they know that. No. And I'm so tired of the right-wing blather points and screaming about the border without a solution. Their solution is we're going to slam the door. Well, that's not going to happen, because there are things called ladders and things called shovels. Find me a workable solution and we'll have a conversation around that. But just screaming talking points, not working for me. Not working for me at all. I got to take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our Labor History in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. Generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So Ohio, one of the most gerrymandered states in the country, they did make some inroads on local school board races. There's this movement, these Moms for Liberty group, well-funded conservative group, who their goal is they want to make sure there's none of that teaching of that theory about race that's critical, and they don't want sex being in books. So we're going to be banning books and we're going to only teach good whitewashed history. But in Ohio, in some of the school districts, there were some people who were on the other side who had won some school boards and said, no, we want to teach actual history, and no, we want to make sure that what is available in libraries is there, and people can read what is age appropriate. So what does the supermajority in the Ohio legislature do? Because, again, there are a couple of school boards that actually have some power to undo the damage that the conservative school boards have done. What do? Well, they introduce a piece of legislation that would take, this is it, they would take away all power from the Ohio Board of Education away from them and give it to the governor. Yeah. See, again, it's about power and control. It's not about, the rhetoric from my conservative friends is always about, local autonomy. It's about smaller, less intrusive government, unless it's what they believe and what they want to ram down our throats. So I find it curious that the people who don't believe in government and say we should have less intrusive government are the ones who are using it. Now I look at this Moms for Liberty group, and there's a great Substack story by this guy Paul Bowers, where he talks about South Carolina, where this really well-organized group of this Moms for Liberty, well-funded, well-organized group, have taken over a number of school boards, and how quickly and message discipline they are in moving their agenda. Because again, it's about, we don't want to teach history, because there's that theory out there, something about race, and we know it's critical. Those are scary words, so we got to go crazy about it. But it's this Berkeley County school district that evidently the first day they went in, they fired the superintendent, very popular superintendent. They canned him. They fired the legal counsel, immediately cut property taxes, and approved a ban on, of course, the theory on race that's critical. And then they set up a review panel to ban books. It is their agenda. It is what they're there to do. And this isn't the first place in South Carolina that's done this. They've had a couple other school boards that have done this as well. And what this guy's writing about is he's going, look, this is the drilling down of this new conservative ideology. Because this isn't conservatism. This is the new conservative. This is the neoconservative stuff that's really about control and power. It's about, again, I go back to this idea. The rallying cry in this movement is in changing history, and banning anything that might be uncomfortable, and then calling it that theory about race that's critical, and then forbidding anyone from knowing that there are anyone who's different. And the messaging is this top-down stuff from Tucker Carlson's mouth, as this guy writes, from Tucker Carlson's mouth right to your racist cousin's ear. They've got this flow down. They've got this machine down. And it sparked a conversation today because look, there's some things about this agenda that I'm struggling with because back in 2015 we took our kids on a civil rights tour. And some of the history that we found was just heartbreaking and angering. And it's one of those things where, I want the kids to be taught actual history. I want them to know what actually happened so that we don't do it again. Let's quick go to the phones. Got Kathy on line one. Kathy, how you doing today?
Oh, good. How you doing?
Good. What's on your mind?
Back during the summer, Melania had this big thing going on about having a big expensive charity thing the money's supposed to go to orphans in it was Ohio or Indiana. But you never heard anything more about it. They had some big fundraiser. Did you ever hear anything if that was a big scam too?
I had not heard about it.
Oh.
But I will look into it.
Going to send all this money to these orphans. I thought, another scam.
Look, I don't doubt it. Anything for me, this is the sad reality. For me, anything with the Trump brand attached to it,
yeah.
I view as a con.
Oh, I know. Okay, hon. I just wondered if you'd heard anything or not.
I will look it up, though. I appreciate the call. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, dear. Have a good night.
Good stuff. It's another one of those things that, sadly, and I hate thinking like that. And like, I want to think the best of people. I want to believe that Melania Trump is out there doing good work. I want to believe that, that there's somebody who's decent in that line. But here again, you look at the past though, and a lot of these charitable events under investigation. A lot of these charitable events have questionable ties to Trump hotels. They seem like, and this is one of those things where you go and thanks, Kathy. I appreciate you bringing this up. They seem like opportunities to create events to generate income for Trump properties. And this is a charity thing that isn't just Trump centric. This is a lot of the nonprofit world. United Way got into trouble for this years ago. A lot of the big ones got in trouble for this, where they spend so much money on raising money that a lot of the money that they do raise goes to just raising money. And this is kind of, not shocking that a con man would take to that, especially one that owns hotels. So would I be surprised if there was some way to, have a high tea to do something on charity and all of the money goes to line the pockets? No, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Because again, the history is what it is. From the kids on down. And I hate the fact that we live in that kind of place. Which is why it's a struggle for me to see good people supporting this guy. I go back to, I know good, decent conservatives. Conservatism has been changed. That idea of the conservatism of the past, the Eisenhower conservatism, belief in institution, that fiscal responsibility, that, I struggle. I struggle with where we are today. There's so much of it. But I go back to, real quick, just to kind of finish this main thought up here. I go back to this school board thing. This Moms for Liberty group and the people pushing this, American Legislative Exchange Council on down, those type of groups, this is really about destroying public education. It's about rallying the troops and all of that and fundraising and all that. But it's really about destroying public education and profitizing and privatizing. Ultimately, the people pulling the strings behind the scene and activating these groups and funding these groups, it's really about taking education away from the working class. At the end of the day, that's really all it's about. And if we lose this, if we allow them to take public education and privatize and profitize and prioritize for the worthy, your kids and my kids are going to be the ones that suffer. Just my thought. Love to hear yours. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Let's take a quick break. Right back. Stick around. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 2006. That was the day mounted police charged 50 janitors and their supporters during a protest in Houston. SEIU's Justice for Janitors campaign had been organizing for years throughout the South and Southwest. Modeled on success achieved in California, SEIU broadened their campaign to Houston and Miami. The union called a month-long strike against the city's largest cleaning companies. Protests and civil disobedience actions continued throughout the strike. Hundreds of strikers routinely marched through the streets of Houston, beating drums and hauling bags of garbage into the middle of intersections to highlight the key services they provided to the city. They were subject to repeated threats of firings and arrests. When police charged at the janitors, it served to turn public support in favor of the strikers. By the end of the month, Tom Balinoff and SEIU Local 1 in Chicago claimed victory for 5,300 Houston janitors. The Chicago local had been central to the 3-year campaign in Houston. Incomes doubled and janitors finally had health insurance, paid vacations, and holidays. The Chicago Tribune detailed the campaign in a November 25th article. The union lobbied building owners and major corporations who held contracts with the cleaning companies. The union worked to gain a foothold among the janitors, sending in seasoned Latino janitors from Chicago to help with organizing. SEIU committed millions of dollars to the organizing drive, setting aside $1 million alone in strike funds. At a victory rally, union leader Flor Aguiar proclaimed, "No one thought a group of poor Latinos from Houston would be able to win anything. But today, we can lift our heads up very high." For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at laborhistoryin2.
What hit the Republican Party on Election Day was, well, the Republican Party. Blow number one, of course, was from the party's president and cult boss, Donald Trump, who wields his narcissism like a political bludgeon. But then, Republicans got an even more damaging gut punch from the party's own Supreme Court majority of 6 partisan hacks. They chose this election year to assert their personal ideological view that the government should control every woman's birth decisions. Not popular. Then, like a karate chop to the party's own neck, its congressional leaders let loose with a pre-election announcement that, if put in charge, the grand old party would go after people's Social Security and Medicare benefits. But Republicans also got hit with something beyond their control. A bevy of new, unabashedly progressive Democratic candidates running on real populist issues that matter to workaday people, backed up by legions of energized grassroots activists. Candidates like Summer Lee, who will be the first black woman elected to Congress from Pennsylvania. Championed by Working Families Party, Our Revolution, and other little d Democratic groups, she beat back concerted attempts by corporate powers in both major parties that tried to demonize and defeat her, including a last-minute dump of $1 million into her GOP opponent's campaign by the American-Israeli Super PAC. Another is Lena Hidalgo, the feisty people's advocate who is the top county official in Houston, Texas. She faced down a pack of ultra-rich oil magnates, developers, and other corporate interests who put up $9 million in a failed effort to boot her. This is Jim Hightower saying grassroots progressives showed in this election a promising path to Democratic rejuvenation. Run aggressive campaigns offering real change from the business-as-usual politics of both parties.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, funniest thing I have seen today, the Ohio Christian Alliance. Yes, the Ohio Christian Alliance. They have made some really wild claims that there's voter fraud in Ohio. Extreme, enormous voter fraud in Ohio. It's in the early voting and the mail-in ballots, of course, but it's voter fraud in a state that is wildly rigged. And Republicans have a super duper majority. They control absolutely everything, but yet, there's fraud. There's fraud. Oh my gosh. It's crazy. It's crazy. Ballot harvesting, all kinds of stuff. It's everywhere. It's rampant, but yet Republicans control everything. I'm confused. There used to be, it's been a long time, not been an awful long time since I've been to church, but there used to be a thing when you were making things up, they used to call it something. A sin, that's right. Yeah. Religious people used to know that kind of stuff. But yeah, but here to share some thoughts on just how how fun and entertaining the lame duck session in Ohio is going to be. I've asked Katie Shanahan to come give us some insight. She's an advisor with Equal Districts Coalition, their website, equaldistricts.com. Katie, thanks for taking time for us.
Thanks for having me, Rick.
So, there's widespread voter fraud. There's widespread mail-in ballot fraud, ballot harvesting, voter registration stuff, all kinds of stuff. Your state's just rife with fraud.
Yeah, it's interesting because our Secretary of State, Frank LaRose, spends a lot of time assuring all of us that our elections do actually have integrity, that there is not rampant voter fraud occurring in state, and that we should trust the outcomes of our election. And yet at the same time, his colleagues and he support all of these pieces of legislation and candidates who would sow doubt in the integrity of our elections and claim these lies about how our elections are run and how they turn out. Also interesting because is the suggestion that our elections that just elected even bigger supermajorities of Republicans, if those aren't legitimate, can we rerun them under fair maps? That would be great.
Can we run them under legal maps?
That's right. My guess is that's probably not what they're asking for.
All right. So what are they doing now? I mean, because I've already talked about them, proposing a legislation to take power away from the school boards and give it to the governor, because heaven forbid the school board have a little bit of power. What are they doing on the voting front in your fair state?
Yeah, so we just finished an election, like you said, under illegally gerrymandered maps at both the state legislative and congressional level. At the state legislative level, those gerrymandered maps gave Republicans even bigger supermajorities. And if that weren't bad enough, they came back swiftly into session at the state house and are working on pushing various different bills that are dangerous to our democracy and also just are not reflective at all of what the majority of Ohioans need, want, or support. For example, there's one piece of legislation that's getting a hearing tomorrow that would make it more difficult for especially Black and Brown voters, youth voters, elder and rural voters to cast ballots for folks with disabilities. That would cut our ability, the time that we have to early vote, that would decrease how much we can actually use ballot drop boxes by saying that they can only be used to actually accept ballots. At the moment, they are ballot drop boxes. They're sort of like post office boxes outside of a post office, and they sit there all the time. So people use them, for example, to submit voter registration forms and other election-related forms. Absentee ballot requests, for example. This would say that they can only be outside of the BOE and used during when voting is actually occurring, so they can only accept ballots and would only be available for that month of voting that we have. It would decrease how long we have after Election Day to actually accept mail-in ballots. So right now, by law, we accept mail-in ballots, and primarily the ballots that are coming in, quote unquote, late. So after Election Day are actually from voters who are overseas, who are serving in the military, or folks who are living overseas, to just 7 days rather than 10. It would stiffen voter identification requirements. All in all, just sort of a rubber stamp ALEC piece of legislation that would make it more difficult for us to vote. That's one piece. There's a separate voter ID law that's moving in the Senate. That bill that I just described is in the House. Of course, like you said, the bill that would gut the Ohio Department of Education is another real slap in the face. It's in seeming retribution for Ohio voters actually electing Democrats to that board. Now that Democrats have a majority on that state board of education of folks who actually support public education, they want to gut that body and instead give all of that power to the legislature. And then the other big announcement that came today hasn't been unveiled. The presser for it is tomorrow. But our Secretary of State, Frank LaRose, and Representative Brian Stewart are going to unveil a constitutional amendment that they will refer through the legislature to the ballot that would actually gut our ability as Ohioans to amend our Constitution through ballot reforms. There are two ways to get ballot reforms on the ballot here in Ohio. One is that the legislature itself passes an amendment and then it gets referred directly to the ballot, which also actually bypasses the people because it doesn't require any Ohioans to sign the petition to get that on the ballot. The other way is for Ohioans to go out and collect hundreds of thousands of signatures to get that issue on the ballot. And our ability to do that is absolutely essential in a state like Ohio that is so gerrymandered that it blocks our ability to get any progress on policies that we actually support through the state house, through regular legislative means. Our ability to go to the ballot and actually enshrine policies or rights into law is our only way to have a real voice in our political process, because we're essentially locked out of it through the legislature because of gerrymandering. So what the rumor is that they're going to propose is that it would increase the signature threshold from just a bare majority, 50%, for a ballot reform measure to pass, to 60%, which, like I said, would just make it more difficult for us to actually have a say in how our government functions.
Yeah, I mean, it's starting to sound like the Senate. We're going to make Ohio like the Senate, where
Yes.
nothing is ever going to get done.
That's right.
And look, that's the point. They've got their hands firmly on the steering wheel. They don't want to give up control, much like
That's right.
they don't want to give up the maps. And you look at somewhere like New York, who listened to the law. Democrats in New York said, "Yeah, we abide by the law. The judges said this. We'll follow the letter of the law." They ended up losing in Ohio. They said, screw you. Well, not just once, not just twice, not just 3 times. What was it, like 5, 6? What are we up to, 20, 30 times?
7. There were 7 strike-downs total of the maps, 2 for the congressional, 5 for our state legislative maps.
And I guess it's okay. So I guess crime does pay.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. The rule of law doesn't exist really in Ohio when it comes to our democracy, given that the Republican leadership was just fine with ignoring court orders to redraw. There are actually still enforceable court orders in effect right now for the Ohio Redistricting Commission to redraw both our state legislative and congressional maps, and they're just not doing it.
Yeah, see, here's my problem with this, though. You go, okay, I'm told eventually this will work itself out. Eventually we'll get to the right place. Eventually it'll be good. Eventually they'll follow the law. Eventually. But all of this bad stuff is still going to be there. They will have still won all of this bad stuff. With eventually, do we then go back and undo all of the bad stuff, retroactively, immediately? Does all that stuff magically be undone? No, it doesn't.
No, of course not. I mean, even if you, in the next election cycle, where all of those offices of leadership, the statewide constitutional offices, if somehow we could get the chambers to flip to being Democratic controlled, of course, you're not able to just immediately undo the decades of damage that Republican leadership has exacted on Ohioans. That's going to take a very long time for us to unwind. But, the fight for democracy is a marathon. It's certainly not a sprint. That's true in Ohio as it is across the country. And we've just got to put one foot in front of the other to try to get on the right path here.
Yeah. And look, while they're doing all this stuff on the voting front, they're keeping us stupid with the divisive stuff.
Yes.
I guess we've got some of the gender stuff again. I mean,
Yeah, there's a hearing today where actually almost 300 Ohioans submitted testimony, either written or in person at the State House, on a bill that would prohibit gender-affirming care for LGBTQ plus youth. It would force teachers to out trans students to their potentially unaccepting parents, and would actually criminalize doctors, prohibiting them from providing that care, but also making them legally liable if they did provide that care for LGBTQ plus youth, which is just, just like with the fights to block abortion access, is an attack on bodily autonomy and an incredible attack on our ability to have control over our bodies and over our healthcare decisions, which shouldn't have politics anywhere near it. Yeah. So it's just, in each of these ways, it's just an affront, like I said, to democracy writ large here in Ohio.
See, this is where, true conservatives would look at this issue and go, no, this isn't the place for government to be involved.
Exactly.
True conservatives that go, smaller government, less intrusive government. Right. It's an individual issue. That's a family issue. That's them. And look, I don't understand the issue entirely. I'll be honest. I feel fortunate that I don't at this moment. But I do know one thing. I don't want the Ohio legislature. I don't want a bunch of mean, angry, old religious zealots telling families how they have to deal with very difficult situations.
Right. I mean, ultimately, the ask of so many of the folks who testified today at the State House is to leave us alone.
Yeah,
right?
mind your business.
We know what's best for us, and the places where especially trans youth can actually find acceptance and support, whether it's in their classrooms with their teachers, if it's at home with their parents, if it is on a sports team, if it's in a doctor's office, we should be expanding those spaces. There isn't a single reason why any kid, no matter who they are or who they love, should feel in any way stigmatized for being who they are. And that's exactly what Ohio is trying to do.
You know, it's disgraceful to me. And look, I don't purport to know everything about the issue, but it's disgraceful to me that people who claim some level of religiosity are using this issue as a political divisive issue. Mm-hmm. It's disgraceful to me that the people who say they follow someone who talked about love and compassion, that this is what they're doing.
Yeah, oftentimes I find some of the most powerful folks who testify are members of clergy or people of faith who come up and reject that notion that you're doing this because your religion is telling you this is what's necessary. I think it's important to push back on that.
We're just in such crazy times. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show with Katie Shanahan. She's an advisor with the Equal Districts Coalition, equaldistricts.com, their website, if you want to take a look at the work that they're doing. I do want to go, because this is where we've got to be talking about, how to fix Ohio. Because I look at Michigan. Michigan did something really pretty impressive. They were able to get Democrats elected to both the Senate and the House. They've got all the row offices, and first time in 40 years, because they had maps that were competitive. I'm not against gerrymandering if we're talking about gerrymandering them to make competitive districts, to where we're talking about 50-50 districts. That'd be great in my mind if we had all 50-50 districts and people were competing on ideas and issues and how to make lives better, instead of, hey, how can we draw cartoon districts to keep so and so safe, so we can have a majority. I got a problem with that. So the question is, how do we help follow the law in Ohio, or how do we fix what you guys have done so that maybe you get fairer, more competitive maps?
Yeah, it's obviously it's both exciting to see what's happening in other Midwestern states. Of course, as somebody who lives in Ohio, it's also really sad to watch those things happening elsewhere and not in your own backyard. But I always say we are not so unlike states like Michigan or Minnesota or Pennsylvania in the Midwest that those types of wins for democracy are impossible. The reality, though, is that what separates us from those other states is just how suppressed we are when it comes to equitable access to the ballot box. Unlike other states in the Midwest who've actually worked to expand access to democracy by implementing either fairer redistricting processes. So like in Michigan, they had an independent redistricting commission. We, of course, did not have that here in Ohio, but also policies like same day or automatic voter registration. We don't have that in Ohio. It's why Ohio has some of the lowest voter turnout rates across the Midwest, because we don't have policies that make it as easy as possible to get registered to vote if you're eligible. But we are also home to some of the biggest voter purges in the country. In the last decade, we have purged 2.4 million people from our voter rolls. And the precipice that gets you purged from the rolls here in Ohio is that you don't vote. The reality is that your constitutional rights are not use it or lose it. You have the right to vote, and you also have the right to sit out elections if you don't feel like participating. And yet Ohio sees that as a reason to kick you off the rolls. So when we're looking at how we actually fix those problems, of course, we can have an entire conversation about how we can fix our redistricting process. My first hint would be to get those pins out of politicians' hands and to get a more independent process to draw those maps. But we also have to look at how we undo some of that voter suppression that exists. We have to figure out how we can re-register the 2.3 million people who skew under 35 and Democratic, re-registered to vote and re-engaged in the process. We also have to figure out how we can implement policies like either same day and or automatic voter registration. That, though, is going to perhaps be made more difficult because the only way that we could implement policies like that is by going through a people-powered ballot reform measure, which the Republicans now are going to make more difficult for us to do potentially. But those sorts of policies are necessary. But it also, quite frankly, takes investment. It's not popular that people want to spend money where you're losing electorally, but divestment in Ohio is not an option. It's not an option to just stop giving money to entire states because you want to write them off. If Ohio were so reliably Republican, why are Republicans still trying so hard to suppress our votes even further? To me, that says voters in Ohio still pose a threat to Republicans. And that means, I mean, until the day I die, I'm Ohio born and bred. Ohio is absolutely worth fighting for. Our communities are worth fighting for. Our democracy in this state is worth fighting for. And what we need is investment to support the long-term, year-round organizing work that has been done in Michigan, that has been done in Wisconsin, that has been done in Michigan and Minnesota and Pennsylvania, to re-engage those folks who have been unregistered to vote or who were never registered to vote, to get young people engaged into this democratic process and to actually get us on a path to a better future in Ohio.
And the place you go for that is equaldistricts.com. If you want more information on the work that Katie Shannon and her group does, equaldistricts.com is the website. Katie, I appreciate the time, the passion.
Thank you so much.
I hope you'll come back and share some more, especially as the fun and entertainment of the Ohio lame duck continues.
I would love to do so. Have a good night, Rick.
Thanks so much. And look, I don't even know what to say about my former state. When I left in '93, it was a sane state. It was a sane state, and somehow over the years, it has turned, well, into this. But I'm with Katie. It's a great state, great people. They can save it. Well worth saving. All you got to do is, well, vote. Take a quick break. Right back. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1982. That Tuesday, the National Football League players ended their 57-day strike. The league scrambled to get the new season going, scheduling games for that very next Sunday. The shortened 9-game season included 2 games played before the walkout, and the rest after the strike ended. The biggest issue that led to the strike was compensation and benefits. The NFL had seen a surge in television revenue with a new 5-year contract worth $2.1 billion. The players asked for 55% of the league's growing profits. The Players Association also wanted a minimum pay scale based on years of service and improvements in healthcare and retirement benefits. The owners flatly refused. On September 20th, the Green Bay Packers beat the New York Giants in a Monday night football game. The next day, the New York Daily News reported, quote, "For the first time in its 63-year history, labor troubles will throw the NFL for a loss." By a unanimous vote of its executive committee, the league's Players Association yesterday voted to call a strike. The article continued by writing, quote, "The players stressed that they had been forced to call the strike in frustration over what they termed management's twin failures to take them seriously and to bargain in good faith." Sports Illustrated summed up fan sentiments about the strike with a cover headline reading, over the image of a deflated football. Finally, the two sides came to an agreement. The players won raises, bonuses based on years in the league, and severance packages for retiring players. But the gains were far below the union's goals. Bitterness lingered, and 5 years later, the players would be on strike once again. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Check out the website, thericksmithshow.com. So Rashid Tlaib brought something up in a hearing I thought was very interesting. Evidently, Alabama diverted $400 million. $400 million in $400 million in COVID relief money to fund 3 mega prisons in Alabama. And you think about, the message. You think about the message that sends. You think about the message that it sends that, we're going to spend all of this money on for-profit prisons. Going to spend all of this money when one of the poorest states in the country needs the public health dollars. I mean, stop and think about that for a second. Just the obscene amount of money that they have wasted. And look, Alabama is one of those things that I find just quite remarkable. You think about the volleyball thing with Brett Favre. The amount of wasted money that we spend on prisons. Now, I moved to Washington State because there's a story in Washington State that, and the reason I bring up the Tlaib thing is because, nobody seems to care about this. Well, we need to lock up those prisoners. And you go, okay, violent criminals, I agree with. But, some of the people we lock up for, questionable. But I look at this guy, Clifford Farrar. Clifford's a 51-year-old guy with type 1 diabetes. He's been insulin dependent for years, since the age of 15. Evidently, one day, according to his medical records, it showed that his blood sugar was dangerously low. Staff gave him this glucogen that would raise his levels. According to the records, the blood sugar shot up. He had a seizure, had a heart attack. He died. Should have ended right there because, I'm guy in prison, had a bad diet, didn't take care of himself, blah, 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 blah. Coroner said died of natural causes. Should have ended right there. Except the family said, no, wait a second. This is a guy who was begging for help, begging for treatment, begging for supplies that evidently the prison said, no, that's on you. While in prison, you have to pay for the supplies for your insulin pump. And, it got to my head where I'm going, no one cares about prisoners because our healthcare system, for people who aren't in prison isn't much better. So as I was reading through this story, I'm going, this is horrible. Someone should be held accountable. But sadly, this stuff happens to poor people all the time. And while we're focused on, nonsense, while we're focused on the things that divide us, it's this kind of stuff. It's this kind of stuff that I would hope that could bring us together. No? I mean, maybe it's just me, but, my thought process is make people's lives better, work together, get stuff done. But I look at what's going on in Ohio, man, and it's all about just holding on to power even more. It's all about strangling democracy. And look, we're doing it to ourselves. I'm frustrated when I hear the F channel talking points ad nauseum because it tells me you haven't really thought about them. I'm frustrated when people throw out every problem without a solution. Or that solution is always, I've got a hammer, everything is a nail. We've got to do better. Just my thoughts. Love to hear yours. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you miss any portion of the program, make sure you grab the podcast. Wherever you find yours, you'll find ours.
Racing forward to do our part to avert the climate hell that the UN Secretary General so passionately warned about earlier this week.
President Biden pledges U.S. leadership and funding at UN Climate Summit. U.S. and China resume formal climate negotiations. Plus,
that result means Democrats would once again control the Senate.
Democrats hold on to thin Senate majority, holding line on U.S. climate policy.
All of those thin majorities and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
And let me tell you this even. If we was ready for the green agenda, I'll raise my hand right now, but we're not ready right now. We're not prepared. We're not ready right now. What we need to do is keep having those gas-guzzling cars.
Ladies and gentlemen, Georgia's Republican U.S. Senate candidate, Herschel Walker. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, the election that continues to inform our outlook on the climate. But first, we're stuck dealing with what happened in Florida.
Yes, we are. Hurricane Nicole caused an estimated $5 to $7 billion in damages after it slammed into Florida last week as a rare November hurricane, destroying roads, bridges, and dozens of beachfront buildings. That's according to AccuWeather.
So another $1 billion-plus storm as these things continue to pile up in recent years.
Yes, they do. In other news, as we go to air, Democrats have retained their razor-thin majority in the U.S. Senate, but control of the U.S. House is likely to narrowly go to Republicans. Congress matters because it will determine where and how quickly funding is deployed for climate and clean energy projects under President Biden's landmark climate law, the Inflation Reduction Act, and whether the U.S. will follow through on funding commitments to help developing nations adapt to the climate crisis. President Biden spoke at the United Nations Climate Summit, COP27, in Egypt on Friday, announcing that thanks to Democrats passing the Inflation Reduction Act, the U.S. is now on track to meet its pledge under the Paris Climate Agreement to cut its emissions 43% by 2030. Biden apologized for the U.S. withdrawal from the Paris Agreement during the Trump administration.
Good. He should.
And he urged major emitters that are responsible for man-made global warming, like the U.S., to move faster to cut greenhouse gas emissions to prevent overshooting 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming to avoid catastrophic impacts.
If we're going to win this fight, every major emitter nation needs to align with the 1.5 degrees. We can no longer plead ignorance to the consequences of our actions or continue to repeat our mistakes. Everyone has to keep accelerating efforts throughout this decisive decade.
Yes, we do. Of course, beginning with us, but hopefully what we're doing and that $400 billion we've allocated under the new bill, is that encouraging the rest of the world to do the same?
It does seem to be helping. COP27 this year is focused on international climate finance under the Paris Agreement. That is getting rich nations that are primarily responsible for the crisis to boost funding to help poorer countries adapt to climate impacts and avoid becoming dependent on fossil fuels. After decades of resistance, there is some progress. Denmark pledged $500 million to finance adaptation in Namibia. Europe, the U.S., and Japan announced $20 billion to help Indonesia ditch coal. Overall, the U.S., U.K., Canada, and Australia are laggards on climate finance. Biden pledged that the U.S. will quadruple funding to help other nations fight climate change, increasing U.S. contributions to a climate resilience fund to $100 million, plus $150 million in new funding for adaptation and resilience projects in Africa. However, Congress must approve any new U.S. funding.
Exactly. The new Congress can stop all of that. Plus, President DeSantis can just call it all off.
The U.S. also proposed launching an international carbon credit trading system, which would allow corporations to pay someone else to cut emissions. That would raise revenue for developing nations, but it was criticized as a way for rich countries to avoid taking responsibility for causing the climate crisis. And it matters because a new analysis from the Global Carbon Budget concludes that at current emissions rates, nations will likely burn through their remaining carbon budget in 9 years, causing the world to blow past that critical 1.5 degrees Celsius target under the Paris Agreement. Finally, some good news.
Thank you.
Biden's diplomacy blitz appears to be working. On Monday at the G20 meeting, the White House announced that the U.S. and China, the world's two biggest greenhouse gas emitters, will resume formal climate negotiations, which experts called a significant development, opening up a pathway for greater emissions cuts.
So the U.S. and China are talking again about climate. There's that. For much more on all of those stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com.
Are you tired of think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So this caught my attention today, and I got to tell you, ladies, it makes me wonder. Her name is Lauren Witzke. You may remember Lauren Witzke. She ran for Senate in Delaware as a Republican. She's now a white nationalist conspiracy theorist, but never mind that. She is a former Senate candidate there in Delaware. She said today that in regards to women voting, worst thing that ever happened to America because women overwhelmingly vote on their emotions, and liberals are very good at appealing to emotions. She said, oh, look at these migrant children. They have nowhere to go. Look at these pregnant women. She has nowhere to go. We got to open up our borders and give them cash assistance for the rest of their lives. And women vote for that. They vote to have weapons taken away, our Second Amendment rights taken away, she says. Women used to not vote because their husbands would make the choice for them. I almost can't finish the rest. But now, just if our husbands and landowners were voting, we'd be in much better place right now. We'd have closed borders. We'd have no infringements on our Second Amendment rights. Red flag laws would be a thing of the past. And we as women wouldn't have such authority and power over who gets into elected office because we don't deserve it. I can't wait for the response that I'm going to get from my next guest. My next guest is Carolyn Fiddler. Carolyn is the political editorial director over at Courier Newsroom. Carolyn, I'm curious. Thoughts?
Gender traitor. That's what my mom would call someone like that. And someone who has the privilege and power to say that and get an audience saying that women have too much power is really something.
Yeah, I'm going, then just don't vote. Why would you want to take it away from everyone else? But this is a frame, because the other day I talked about Jesse Waters, the loofah sponge guy replacement.
Gross.
Talking about how, men need to marry women because married women vote for Republicans and unmarried women vote for Democrats. And, there's this whole frame that women can't be trusted on their own, that they need a man, Carolyn. They need a man.
We are dangerous.
That's it? That's the best I can get out of you?
It's just impossible to know where to start with this nonsense. Oh my gosh. Come on. What year is this?
Right.
It is very strange that in the year 2022, someone is saying these words out loud with their mouth and where people can hear them. It's pretty wild.
MAGAGA. MAGAGA, Carolyn.
Oh,
we're going to make America great.
I have all the glory I need.
And glorious again, evidently. That's the right response. So what did you think? Did you watch the big announcement by Trump yesterday? And were you as bored as everyone else?
I watched a good chunk of it. Although in the end, only Fox News was showing the whole thing, and even they got so bored they cut away for 10 or 15 minutes. They did.
Yeah, no.
It was that boring of a speech.
He stuck to the teleprompter, evidently, which I did find ironic.
Yeah.
So, but the fun in this is going to be watching, because evidently earlier in the day they had a troll flying a plane over top, with something with a DeSantis message, Trump's a loser or something like that. And I said, the fun is going to be watching all of the Trump trolls troll Trump. That's going to be the fun for me.
I mean, it's going to be fun in a lot of ways, but also like the anti-trans stuff that he rolled out last night was a new one for him. He usually hasn't talked a ton about that previously, so we know what kind of attacks we can expect from that wing of conservatives of the Republican Party.
Well, you kind of do have to step up the crazy, right? Because the old shtick, it's like a comedian. You can't keep coming around with the same tired material. You need some new shtick. I hope he's been working on new material, because the 2015 stuff not gonna fly.
No, there's gonna be banning books and pretending that transgender people don't exist, and also gays are scary or something.
Well, okay, I see that. What I do find interesting is some of the news that has come out around this. I guess one of the big mega donors, this Ronald Lauder, has said not going to finance Trump's 2024 race. And I think a part of this is going to be the moneyed interests are going to be walking away from him. But the media, the right-wing media, has walked away. And as I said at the beginning, you had, Red State's headline was, Trump shocks the world by nearly putting us to sleep. Yeah, I mean, the ratings... I fear for him that his ratings are not going to be what they're going to be, and then he's going to step up the crazy.
Yes. I think the turning their backs on him is a temporary thing. I think he's going to step up the crazy, and I think they're all going to come running back, and it's going to be another couple years of just trash and hell.
So you, the work that you do at Courier and the incredible work that you guys do at Courier Newsroom, how are you going to deal with what's coming? Because we know what we kind of, you don't need a crystal ball to see just how off the rails this has to get for him to get the attention that he craves, that he needs, that he has to have in order for him to exact his revenge. How do you foresee you guys handling this and covering it, or are you going to cover it?
Well, one of the great things about Courier Newsroom, there are many, but one of the things I like best about working there is that our newsrooms don't get into political fist fights or horse race stuff or any of that nonsense. If it doesn't affect real humans in the states where we have newsrooms, it's not newsworthy. We talk about things that actually affect people's lives. And Trump doing a rally in a state, is going to affect people's lives, or Trump, attacking a state.
Traffic.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to hate Michigan so badly. He's going to definitely attack the hell out of the women in charge of that state and the Democrats in charge of that state now. So when he does that kind of thing, we'll cover it because that affects people there. But his day-to-day antics are, they don't matter.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, the ABC, NBC, CBS, they didn't cover it last night either.
Nope. MSNBC didn't air it. They put it up there, but no sound. You could see them, but that was it. CNN aired a little bit, and then even Fox cut away. It was just, they cut back just in time for him to attack gay people and transgender people.
Yeah,
but
because you got to have that. Now, I've liked to have seen someone do a mystery science. Was it 2,000 or 3,000? Have the people in the front row just mocking him. I would love to see that.
I would absolutely pay for that. Did you hear that his security was blocking people from leaving? People tried to leave early. Oh my God, what a disaster! But I do worry that he's going to come back crazier. He's going to read the coverage and just go really hard after this.
No, because it is about the show, and this has always been. It's always been about the show. Again, it's not about making people's lives better. And look, does anybody believe that he cares about the country? He cares about working people? No, he cares about himself. And someone asked me, not too long ago, are you surprised that he's running? And I'm like, no, he was always going to run because he wants revenge. He wants to seek vengeance. That's all this is about. It's about his shallow ego.
Yes. He is not a steward of the party that he is glommed onto at all. If he were, he would have held off announcing until after the runoff in Georgia. But he doesn't actually care about other Republicans insofar as they only exist to support him as far as he's concerned.
Yeah. So. Speaking of the runoff in Georgia, I got to tell you, Georgia, come on. Are you kidding me? Now, I get it. Brian Kemp had such a huge win. that it did a lot of people did switch their votes for Warnock. But seriously, I mean, Herschel freaking Walker. I mean, seriously, really?
I mean, Warnock won. He just didn't clear the threshold to not, to avoid a runoff is all. Warnock did get more votes.
I know that, but you still, again, you didn't win. We're still going through this runoff, which if people don't look, you look at all the things that Georgia has done to block people from voting, all of the obstacles that they've put in the way. I'm still not sure that's not going to work long term.
I'm with you. I think that's, I mean, the law was terrible in ways that people are only just starting to comprehend. The kind of less sexy parts. Everyone was talking about how you can't, bring water to people standing in line to vote. But the really insidious parts of that bill involved being able to, it was very easy to challenge voter registrations and ballots, and Republicans have been just unseating Democratic election boards all across the state and replacing them with Republicans. And that stuff is going to have a long-term impact in a very bad way.
Yeah, while we were on our Working Class Heroes radio tour in Chicago and Minneapolis, we did events with Greg Palast and his movie Vigilante, Georgia's vote suppression hitman, talking about that very thing, where he went and found, two people who had challenged thousands of people's votes.
Yeah.
And he went to the one woman and was like, do you know this person? No. Do you know this person? No. Do you know this person? No. And just kept going through all these people. Do you know these people? They're like, no. Then why did you challenge their right to vote? And she obviously had no explanation. It's a great movie. I suggest people, vigilantemovie.com, go see it. But again, you hit right on the button, the important issue. They can go and challenge thousands of people's right to vote, and these folks don't even know it, and it's perfectly legal.
Right. Yeah, we're just now starting to see the effects of that law in Georgia. I think you're completely right. It's gonna snowball a little bit over the coming cycles.
Now, isn't there kind of a part of you, like a sadistic kind of part of you, that goes, I don't know, Senator Herschel Walker, wouldn't that be, I don't know, little entertaining? I don't know, a little bit.
I can't deal with the fact that Tommy Tuberville would not be the dumbest person in the U.S. Senate. That bothers me so much. And I shouldn't say dumb, that's unkind. They both had a lot of head injuries when they were playing football. That stuff has a lasting effect.
Okay,
CTE is real. The
CTE caucus, then.
Yes.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah.
Any predictions on that? Do you think Warnock's going to pull this out?
I am cautiously optimistic. I wonder what each side's effort's going to be down there now that it's not for all the marbles. It's not for majority control of the Senate. So I hope that Democrats invest in it as heavily as they did when it was for all the marbles, but we'll see.
Yeah, no, because there's part of me that goes, it doesn't really matter at this point because nothing's going to get passed anyway. The next 2 years are going to be, watching the Republicans be Republicans.
With their little tiny majority, they're going to rip themselves to shreds. It's going to be amazing. I give McCarthy like 3 months as speaker.
You think it'll last that long? How will it end? Will it end? I should just let's leave that open. How will that end?
I think he'll get a no confidence vote from his own caucus and get replaced.
Oh, see, I thought he was going to take himself out.
He's going to throw his hands up and be like, I'm done.
Oh, no, I thought it would be much worse than that. But I'm not advocating for it, but I'm just saying, I look, can you imagine, being in charge of that cavalcade of crazy? That clown car of insanity. Can you imagine what Marjorie Trainwreck Green is going to do if they put her in charge of a committee, or Gun Fetish Barbie, or Louis Gohmert, or
Matt Gaetz,
any of them, yeah. Jim Jordan or Biggs, or any of those, Chip Roy, or any of them.
It's gonna be really ugly. I mean, Jim Jordan is one of the ugliest, and I mean in demeanor, not in appearance. He does kind of have a Beavis thing going on in appearance, but he is an ungracious, unkind, and just hatefully motivated person. It sure seems like. Yeah.
So what are we expecting in the coming days then, as we go through this lame duck? What are we expecting happening here these next couple of days?
I think the Democrats are going to get done what they need to get done. They're going to raise the debt ceiling. They're going to keep government open. They're going to, cross their T's and dot their I's. And Republicans will go along with it as far as they have to, because they don't want that stuff hanging over their head when they come into sort of power, when they control the House barely, because they're not going to be able to get shit done.
Well, thanks for that.
Sorry, it's going to be like 2 years of just constant infighting, and I'm not excited about it, but they did this to themselves.
Yeah, no, but the sad reality is it's going to harm the country, because we're not going to get anything done, and this is where the frustration is, in my view, because there's so much that needs to get done.
But we have more Democrats in charge of state legislatures now, so more will get done.
So how do you look at last Tuesday's outcome? Is this, I have a bunch of people say, oh, it's historic. It was a landslide. It was all this thing. I'm going, yeah, it was historic, but as a country, we didn't really solve the main problem of what direction we're going. We're still kind of ripped apart. I'm curious your thought.
Well, I know that down ballot Democrats did really, really well. They had fairer maps in Pennsylvania and Michigan, and Democrats flipped both chambers in Michigan and may yet still flip the House in Pennsylvania. Some would argue that they already have, but there's going to be legal wranglings and recounts, and it's going to take at least a month for all this to settle out in Pennsylvania, because it's for the whole ball game. It's for majority control of one of those chambers, right. And so both sides are going to fight tooth and nail to make that happen. But Democrats and a whole bunch of election deniers lost their races to control elections in their respective states, and that is a big deal and very important. And down ballot results for Democrats were incredibly positive, and they were really good for the country, because democracy will be protected for another 4 years in many of these key states. Thank goodness.
What was the biggest race this election cycle? Your thoughts? What was the biggest one? See, I'm going easily. The biggest win for Democrats, in my view, was Josh Shapiro as governor here in Pennsylvania. We literally do not have a Nazi as governor.
That is a big deal.
That's a big deal.
I would put that up against Arizona, though.
Is she going to concede?
It doesn't matter. I don't care if she concedes or not. She oughta, but I'm not sure she will, and it doesn't matter. She's not going to be governor.
It doesn't matter, and she's not going to be governor. That is what matters. And I said the same thing about Mastriano. It took him 5 days to concede, but I didn't care one way or another.
Shocked he conceded, frankly.
In fact, everybody I know who knows him is shocked that he did as well. It's that kind of funny. But hey, we're in for a lot of entertainment over the next several months. Over the next 2 years, it's going to be, destructive for the country. It's going to be bad for working people, but at least there should be some fun and entertainment sitting in this seat. At least there'll be something, right?
There will definitely be something. But, I'm with you. I'm worried about all the, real human beings this is going to hurt. The journalist class sitting in DC is gonna, laugh their butts off, but folks in states are going to be hurting because of the things that Republicans are not going to get done.
Yeah, sad stuff. So. But you'll be here to help us get through it, I'm sure. Or at least we'll keep asking you to come back if you'll join us after today. I'm not sure though, but Carol and I appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
Good stuff. Our good friend Carolyn Fiddler. Make sure you check out the work that she does over at couriernewsroom.com, where she's the political editorial director. Couriernewsroom.com, the website. Gonna take a quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk. If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our labor history in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible, 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. You know, generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
Evidently, there's going to be a Twitter 2.0. Yeah, it's going to be a sweatshop. Twitter 2.0 is going to be a sweatshop. At least that's what the email that Elon Musk sent out to the staff, writing that Twitter 2.0 will, if you're going to be on board, you're going to need to it's going to be extremely hardcore, long hours, high intensity. People need to click yes to confirm by 5 o'clock, I guess today, or else they'll get 3 months severance package. I guess you're fired. If you're not willing to work longer hours for in tougher conditions, well, then you're out the door. And what I found interesting is the people who, again, this is the difference between the evangelical people, the honest evangelicals, the people who live life by deeds, by good acts, by example, and the missionary folks, the words. We gotta, we're on a mission. All those labor laws, all those things, we don't need those. We gotta do the mission. This is the difference. The guy who told me, well, this is how innovation happens. This is an exciting time at Twitter because this is how innovation happens. I'm going, no, this is how exploitation happens. This is how abuse happens. This is how a billionaire, many times over, gets to be even more of a billionaire many times over. The exploitation of working people. This is what they do. And the expectation is that you're going to work harder than they will, or as hard as they will, in their business to make them more money. Very, very interesting. And this Twitter thing. Now, look, I believe there's a big part of me that believes that this is a moment of Musk saying we've got to destroy it so we can save it. Because, look, the left, this is one of the few bastions where the left has some power, where the marginalized, where minority communities have some voice, where working people have some voice. This is kind of that. So, of course, it has to be destroyed. This is kind of like the F channel for the left, if you will, on a much smaller scale. So, of course, it has to be destroyed. And I believe that's a big reason that Musk took it over. That we're going to take this and we're going to save it by destroying it. And it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Now, I'm interested to see how the legal parts of this all play out, because there's some legal components to this. But again, when you have these billionaires who have this kind of power, labor laws be damned, contracts be damned, common decency be damned. We're in interesting times. But the reaction for me in this has been very, 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 very interesting. And for me, it's that evangelical, the people who, we live life by doing good deeds, or no, it's just about the words. The missionary, and I've had labor people do this to me. We don't have to follow the labor laws because we're on a mission to get people to follow the labor laws. I actually had a labor leader explain that to me one time, that, we the 8-hour day and 40-hour work week didn't apply to him because we were fighting the mission. And I'm going, no, you're the evangelical. You're the one who are supposed to help us lead by example, show the world how to do it right. This is that kind of moment where the Musks of the world are literally tearing conditions down, are literally ripping things apart for their own gain. But we will see what happens in Twitter 2.0 land. Sweatshop bird. That's probably going to be it. Quick break. Back after this. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 2006. That was the day mounted police charged 50 janitors and their supporters during a protest in Houston. SEIU's Justice for Janitors campaign had been organizing for years throughout the South and Southwest. Modeled on success achieved in California, SEIU broadened their campaign to Houston and Miami. The union called a month-long strike against the city's largest cleaning companies. Protests and civil disobedience actions continued throughout the strike. Hundreds of strikers routinely marched through the streets of Houston, beating drums and hauling bags of garbage into the middle of intersections to highlight the key services they provided to the city. They were subject to repeated threats of firings and arrests. When police charged at the janitors, it served to turn public support in favor of the strikers. By the end of the month, Tom Balinoff and SEIU Local 1 in Chicago claimed victory for 5,300 Houston janitors. The Chicago local had been central to the 3-year campaign in Houston. Incomes doubled and janitors finally had health insurance, paid vacations, and holidays. The Chicago Tribune detailed the campaign in a November 25th article. The union lobbied building owners and major corporations who held contracts with the cleaning companies. The union worked to gain a foothold among the janitors, sending in seasoned Latino janitors from Chicago to help with organizing. SEIU committed millions of dollars to the organizing drive, setting aside $1 million alone in strike funds. At a victory rally, union leader Flor Aguiar proclaimed, "No one thought a group of poor Latinos from Houston would be able to win anything. But today, we can lift our heads up very high." For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at laborhistoryin2.
What hit the Republican Party on Election Day was, well, the Republican Party. Blow number one, of course, was from the party's president and cult boss, Donald Trump, who wields his narcissism like a political bludgeon. But then, Republicans got an even more damaging gut punch from the party's own Supreme Court majority of 6 partisan hacks. They chose this election year to assert their personal ideological view that the government should control every woman's birth decisions. Not popular. Then, like a karate chop to the party's own neck, its congressional leaders let loose with a pre-election announcement that, if put in charge, the grand old party would go after people's Social Security and Medicare benefits. But Republicans also got hit with something beyond their control. A bevy of new, unabashedly progressive Democratic candidates running on real populist issues that matter to workaday people, backed up by legions of energized grassroots activists. Candidates like Summer Lee, who will be the first black woman elected to Congress from Pennsylvania. Championed by Working Families Party, Our Revolution, and other Little D Democratic groups, she beat back concerted attempts by corporate powers in both major parties that tried to demonize and defeat her, including a last-minute dump of $1 million into her GOP opponent's campaign by the American-Israeli Super PAC. Another is Lena Hidalgo, the feisty people's advocate who is the top county official in Houston, Texas. She faced down a pack of ultra-rich oil magnates, developers, and other corporate interests who put up $9 million in a failed effort to boot her. This is Jim Hightower saying grassroots progressives showed in this election a promising path to democratic rejuvenation. Run aggressive campaigns offering real change from the business-as-usual politics of both parties. The Hightower Radio Lowdown is brought to you by the Lowdown Happy Hour, live streamed from the Chat and Chew Cafe. Details at hightowerlowdown.org.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So this week, the Department of Labor launched its National Apprenticeship Week, recognizing the incredible and important work that our building trades are doing and training the next generation of crafts folks to, well, build the infrastructure, the buildings, the skyscrapers, all the things that we need. Sorry, I do not recognize the non-union contractor. Sorry, ABC, your program sucks. So no, you don't get recognized during Apprenticeship Week. Just the registered apprenticeship programs. Those are the ones that I recognize. Because what we know is in the building trades, when you complete one of these registered apprenticeship programs, graduates earn on average about 77 grand. That, my friends, that's a pretty good chunk of change, especially when you're not saddled with a lifetime of student loan debt, especially when you're not being, hounded by debt collectors, because a lot of students I know, huge problems. And these registered apprenticeship programs are a pathway to a career of financial stability and that middle class that we talk about all the time. That's why I've asked Jamar Evans to come talk with us. He is a first-year apprentice with the Bricklayers and Allied Craft Workers in Washington, D.C. Recently met the president showing off his skills as a bricklayer. Jamar, thanks for taking time for us.
No problem, man. It's good. Nice to have you.
So let's start with the why do we want to be a bricklayer? What is it that made you go, you know what, this is what I'm going to do?
It all started in high school, man. I was a sophomore. I signed up for a HVAC originally. I wanted to be, working in HVAC, but I ended up getting switched to a masonry class. So I was a bricklayer at that point from my sophomore year to my senior year of high school. And I graduated, and I just had a love for doing it. Like, I just fell in love doing it over and over. I would get better with repetition. And I graduated high school in 2020. Mind you, this is around the pandemic. Everything was shut down. I just had no plan at that point because every option I had was canceled because of the whole pandemic. And I signed up for Job Corps. A friend told me about Job Corps, and got to Job Corps, and from there it was a lot I learned. I learned more in the Job Corps facility than I did in the vocational tech school in high school.
Well, that's what it's supposed to be. So you're a young guy. You've right out of high school into this program. I mean, that's kind of what it's kind of supposed to be, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So what are your friends saying? I mean, are you pushing them? Are you showing off to them? I mean, recently you got to show off in front of the president. That's pretty cool, right?
That was definitely cool. I mean, I didn't expect the president to be so close to me, but yeah, he was right up on me, man. I showed him he actually wanted to, cut a brick in half. I couldn't show him that in the White House.
They don't let you have the sharp stuff in the White House?
Yeah, they told us we couldn't have things like that. He told us before what we couldn't do and what we could do, and we understood very well. So,
no. Look, and this is one of the things that I love about Joe Biden, because not only wants to learn a little bit, but wants to put you to work. That infrastructure bill that was passed a year ago yesterday, that's probably going to be your career. That's probably going to be the job the bill that employs you for the rest of your life, and probably every kid that gets a job like you on into the future because of the investments we're making in today and tomorrow. So, you're the future.
Yeah, feels good, man.
No, and the fact that you're not going to be saddled with a lifetime of student loan debt, that's got to be pretty okay too, right?
Hey, that's more than okay.
So what are you going to do with all this money that's going to be eventually come rolling in? Because right now you're earning as you're learning in this, because this is the key to the building trades. This is what I want folks to understand. When you go off and you learn a trade and in the building trades, they actually pay you while you're learning this trade because you're actually doing the job. And then eventually you get your journeyman papers and all this stuff. And then you make even more money as you get better at your skill, at your craft, at your trade. You earn higher wages. That's kind of the gig, right?
Yeah, it's definitely the gig. I would want to add to what you were saying. Being out here working with these guys, old-time bricklayers and stuff, they're just very warm, and they're just like a brotherhood almost, man. You're struggling with something, they'll come around and help you. It's like we're all winning, We're all one.
No, and that's the important part of this, and that is the focus of a union. It's the reason that I've been a union guy my whole life. Where I grew up, when you saw someone get a union job, you saw their lives get better immediately. They had food at the end of the month. Their lives got better. Kids got, secondhand bikes. They got secondhand cars. They eventually moved out of our housing project. Their lives got better. And this is the message that I think of the day, union job, better life, but especially for your generation that's, coming into an economy that isn't great for them. This is truly a career path for young people like you to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to build something, I'm going to build a future, I'm going to build a career, and I'm going to make good money doing it. I'm not going to be saddled with a lifetime of debt. This sounds like the perfect path for a good number of folks. So when you're talking to your friends, are you pushing them all in this direction?
I'm definitely pushing everybody in the same direction I went in, whether it be, it doesn't have to be bricklaying. I'm just saying as in, you could be a welder, anything that suits you. I'm definitely pushing everybody into, these careers because, it's warming. It just feels good to build stuff with your hands and look back at it and say, I built it, but you built it with its years,
So what have you built? Because here's the thing. This is the annoying thing. And you're going to be annoying. I'm telling you this right now. Eventually, you're going to be really annoying. Because I've got building trades friends who will drive down the road going, yeah, I built that, I did that. Oh, shut up already. Anything you've built?
I mean, all right, so my first...
Here it comes.
This will be my project. It's not finished. It's not even completed yet. But you could still drive past it and see.
There we go.
Because we're building I think it's a new art center for Bowie State University. It's in Maryland. It's not done yet, but we do have a couple staircases up already, but you can drive by and see them. So, yeah, I'm proud of, being able to be working on those staircases and stuff like that. Project's not done. Maybe be done probably sometime next year, but this will be my first project I can say that I built,
Yeah, so you can write this down on the calendar that I told you on this day. When your grandchildren are here, you're going to take them to those steps, and you're going to go, these are the first steps. This is the first thing I ever did. Because this is what you guys do. And look, I understand the pride. I understand the fact that you've created something and left something for us and for the future, and that's a great thing. But it gets a little annoying. That's kind of mean, isn't it?
Yeah,
no, but I appreciate the time you've given us. Any advice for young people your age who are going, hey, I'm looking for a direction, any advice?
I mean, I would definitely advise people to look into Job Corps. Check it out. Go through orientation, check it out, see what it's about. Job Corps opened up a lot of doors for me, and it's so many things that they offer you. You can do more than one trade there if you would like, and it's just really beneficial for you than probably taking a college path or a path that you're not, your family's telling you to take, but you're not too sure about taking it. Look in the Job Corps. It'll help you get to where you need to be, and I think it's the best option. Always be humble. One more thing I could say is be humble. Just stick to your dreams. Stick to what you want to do. Don't be doing something that someone else is doing because you think it's going to work. Just stick to your dreams and stick to what you like doing. And that's, for my generation, that's what I have to say.
There you go. Jamar, good stuff. It was really good meeting you. Congratulations. Keep up the great work, and I wish you the best in your career. And I hope you build amazing things and rebuild our infrastructure in our nation. Thanks so much for coming on.
No problem, man.
Good stuff. If you want to check out more of what our friends over at the Bricklayers are doing, check out their website, bacweb.org. We'll get links out on social media how you can take a look at that. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, another bricklayer going to share some of her stories. Lindsay Brown's going to be here. She's a third-year apprentice, as where Jamar's a first year. She's a third year. She's got another interesting story that I want to get to. So we're going to take a quick break right back after this. Stick around. Listen to The Rick Smith Show. Where working people come to talk.
Back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
Still Still got time to partake in Banned Book Week in my local public library. Good on them. The good folks at Bosler Library are celebrating Banned Book Week from the American Library Association. All of your favorite banned books right there, able for you to, find out what all the craziness is about. And I'm Rick Smith.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
So as we've been talking, National Apprenticeship Week, and, I've been trying to push my kids in that direction, going, hey, maybe think about getting into one of these apprenticeship programs, learn a skill that, look, even if you do for a year, 2, 5, you have this skill, this portable skill that, in decades down the road, you're still going to have, even if you choose to do something else. My next guest, also a bricklayer, in her 3rd year of the apprenticeship program. She doing the bricklayer thing because, hey, got to have a career, got to bring money in, but also does beauty pageants and was actually a finalist in the 2022 Miss New York competition. So, wow, doing the bricklayer thing during the day, doing the runway, pretty impressive. And here to share some thoughts on why the bricklayer thing, because if you got the other, I don't know why, but we're going to find out. Lindsey Brown, thanks for taking time for us.
Hi, Rick.
So I got to start right there. Why the bricklayer thing?
So I think it really started when I got out of high school. I graduated at 16. I actually wanted to go to college to be a pediatrician. I quickly realized after like 2.5 years, that I just don't learn like that. College isn't everybody's learning style. I needed to make money while I was in school, so I started working these, residential non-union jobs. The gentleman I worked for actually encouraged me to go into the union. He was retiring. He was sheet metal by trade. So I really just started looking into it and interviewed at the BAC in Rochester, New York. And I said, let me give this a try. I got thrown right onto the job before I had training, and I fell in love with it. I really liked that it was not only an outlet working with my hands, but you can, the whole experience was really great.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, and don't take this the wrong way, and I don't want to sound sexist, but you don't look like the typical bricklayer. I mean, my image of a bricklayer is a giant guy with no neck, giant hands. That's kind of my mental image of a bricklayer. Yeah, beauty pageant queen. I'm not my image of a bricklayer.
Yeah, I'm learning over time that, in today's day with how hectic things are, it's not like how it used to be. Women's roles have definitely become something different. We're not home cooking and cleaning necessarily and solely doing that. We also have to make money, and jobs truly don't have genders. Women can do anything a male can do.
Especially now, because I was at the AFL convention in Philadelphia over the summer, and they had this great thing that picked up the bricks for you. They had this giant, it was like a big hand, and it came down and picked up these 100-pound bricks, and it moved wherever you wanted to. And I'm going, if they had one of those when I was in high school, maybe I would have been a bricklayer.
Yes, Rick, I have seen those, the newer equipment that we have, but just like anything, your body gets used to it. When I first started and I was on a block job, my body hurt so bad. I felt like I got run over by a truck 3 times, backed over another 12. But in a few weeks to come, your body adapts and it gets used to it with the repetition.
So what do your friends say? Because look, I'm sure you get a lot of, the difference between being the bricklayer and the beauty queen. I'm sure there's some interesting conversation around that. And look, I think it's great. I don't want to make it sound like I think it's fantastic that you're doing this. I think it's fantastic that you have the opportunity to do this, and I think other people should. And I think it's great. But I'm curious the conversation and some of the statements that are brought towards you.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people just don't, when I conversate with them or meet somebody new and I tell them I'm a brick and block mason, and I do concrete. They look at me, a little funny, and they're like, "Oh, you're lying. You don't do that." But like I said before, I mean, women nowadays, you can do anything you set your mind to, and the pageant was just an additive. I was a mason before I actually started doing the beauty pageants. As my career developed, I got very passionate about being somebody for someone else that I necessarily might not have had. Meaning that, like, my goal is to start groups, or go to high schools to help promote the trades. And I thought doing a beauty pageant would be a great way to show girls and women that, hey, you can be true to yourself and also work just as hard.
It's an interesting frame. So as you're going around and you're telling these stories and you're talking to people, what kind of response are you getting?
Some people are a little open to it. I mean, as I talked to, I've done a couple career fairs, talking to like middle school kids, give or take in age. And at first, they're a little hesitant. They don't quite understand it. But I think the more that we put it out there and communicate these types of things, people are becoming more open to it and actually want to try the hands-on aspect of it.
Now, as a parent, as the father of two daughters, there's always the thought of this is a male-dominated industry. You're an attractive young woman in a male-dominated industry. My fear as a father is that this is, basically, throwing my daughter's a woman to the wolves. Do you find that to be the experience?
Honestly, Rick, no matter what career you choose, I feel like you're always going to have to deal with some sort of something. Yeah, it is a male-dominant, predominant field. But the union, the thing I love most about the union is that you have the most protection, and the community of people that stand behind you and want to see you succeed is just a beautiful thing. A lot of these men and older men have really taken me under their wing, and they don't want to put up with nothing. If they hear something on a job site, they 100% have my back, and so do the companies as well as the union.
Yeah, no, and that's been my experience, and I asked that question specifically to find out if that is what's going on, because I find that to be, time and time again, the environment that, especially in a unionized workforce, where the union does have the back of workers, and it is a family environment. Because I'm trying to allay the fears of people like me who go, no, I don't want my daughters anywhere near there. No, this is a viable option for women. It's a good career. It's a good paying career. It's a way, because you said at the start you wanted to go to college and be a pediatrician, I believe, right?
Yes.
And what stopped you? Probably money, right?
Well, money and just the learning style isn't for everybody. Some people learn, through books, and some people learn through working with your hands, and that's the beautiful thing about these apprenticeships is it's paid hands-on training.
So what advice when you give these presentations, what advice do you give young women and young men? Look, I mean, let's not be sexist one way or the other. What are you giving young people? What advice are you giving them? Because look, as I was talking in the last segment with Jamar about, the future for the building trades in this country is extraordinarily bright because of the infrastructure bill signed by President Biden a year ago yesterday. There is going to be a lot of bricks to be laid. There is going to be a lot of pipes. There are going to be a lot of wires. There are going to be a lot of buildings. There's going to be a lot of paving. There's going to be a lot of stuff that needs to be rebuilt, reinvented, redone. What are you saying to them?
Get out there and go for it. Keep an open mind. If you have an opportunity to go help dad out or help grandpa out or whoever it may be, try it. Because I know a lot of people like myself didn't know that they loved it or that it existed until you actually got out there and tried it. And don't be afraid if it's something that you do decide to dive into. Keep your head down, earn your respect, and there is room for advancement. There is room for growth, and that's something that you just got to keep in mind.
Yeah, no, that's right there. There's a big part of the answer as well. So you're the third-year apprentice. How long is an apprenticeship program? How long does that go with the trades?
So for bricklaying, my program is 4 years. That can be a little dependent on work hours and things like that, but generally it's 4-year program.
Interesting. And you're getting to the end of the road there. And so then what will you do once you get to the end of the road? Once you get your apprenticeship in, then what will you be?
So after I finish my apprenticeship, I will be considered a journeyman, journeywoman, per se, and I don't necessarily want my road to end there. I'm a strong believer in knowledge is power, so I want to learn as much as I can. I want to become a foreman, eventually start running work, and continue my goal of helping the youth, open their eyes to that this is a very viable option.
There it is, taking over and changing the world. There you go. That's kind of where I thought you were going to go. But Lindsay, I appreciate you taking some time for us. Good on you. I wish you the best in both the bricklaying world and the beauty pageant world. I hope you'll come back and talk to us again sometime down the road.
Thanks, Rick. I appreciate it.
Outstanding. Good stuff. Again, make sure you check out the Bricklayers website. bacweb.org is their website. We'll get links out on social media how you can take a look at that. Going to take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk. If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our Labor History in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. Generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
What incredible stories. And look, these are replicated time and time again when you talk to people in the building trades. These kind of careers that are built, the financial security, the pride. And you got the sense from the first year apprentice, Jamar the first year to the third year apprentice, you get this sense of, this can do. I mean, Jamar was kind of little, he's a little, hey, I'm going to do this and I'm going to try. And Lindsay's at the point, I'm going to change the world. I'm taking over. I am taking over and changing the world. And, that's that kind of empowerment. That's good stuff. And, I keep coming back to, we are in a moment where I look at the president's, infrastructure bill. This is something that, quite frankly, we should be celebrating at every opportunity. The fact that, as I said with Jamar, this bill is going to be their career. This bill is going to be what people make lives out of, rebuilding our nation in a way that is going to get us the things we need, the investments that we desperately need. The roads, the bridges, the broadband, all of that stuff. But also the careers, the lives, the families, the communities, all of that stuff. And this is where, again, when you hear, the conservatives talk, government can't do anything. No, government investment does good things when done right. And this is a big part of it. Again, I give my friends at the building trades all the credit in the world for the lives that they transform. Good stuff. Again, bacweb.org if you want to check out the Bricklayers and Allied Crafts Union and the work that they do, and maybe how you can find an apprenticeship program in your neck of the woods. And look, when I went to the convention, I saw that giant thing that picked up the bricks, going, maybe I would have been a bricklayer. Anyway, if you missed any of today's program, download the podcast wherever you get your favorite podcast. You will find ours. Also, if you got a question, comment, something on your mind, you can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.